Welcome to the Amplifying Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Tara Lehman, a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services, of which Amplifying Leadership is a division. This podcast is a place dedicated to amplifying your leadership through our guest stories, tips, information, and more. To learn more about our leadership division, you can visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Neil Twa, CEO and co-founder of Voltage Holdings. Welcome to Amplifying Leadership.
Thank you for having me on the podcast, Tara. It's great to be here today and, share a good word. We'll see what happens.
Sounds great. Well, I like our audience to get to know you a little bit first. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your leadership story?
Well, I won't bore you with all the details that only my mom would be interested in. But I got my start around 18 years ago, at least in the professional leadership of my own company. When I like to jokingly say I burned the boats, not the bridges, very important.
Okay.
Set out and fired the man and left my IBM corporate career. I was a project manager, executive in the knowledge management business side of it, where we were working with high-tech companies, oil and gas, mobile industry, and that kind of stuff. And we were developing large language predecessors to the AI invasion you see now. We were developing that back then. And I cut my teeth in the mobile industry. I was in the little startup called Sprint. You might have heard of it.
Oh, I have, yes.
Yep. And specifically when they launched the mobile phone, I was one of the first employee badges into there. And I was overseeing the interior knowledge management system, a little 5-man team that was put together to basically try to document everything and keep the phone, keep people off the phones and try to support them and all the good stuff that goes with that. And by the time IBM hired me away, there was 80,000 people in that company. So I got to watch a hyper-growth situation in the mobile industry from the inside out, which was very fascinating. And but that's not where I wanted to be. I honestly went to the corporate world because I was in a music degree on a scholarship and thought I was going to go be in music. But instead, I was going to end up living in a van down by the river, which was not cool back then. It's totally cool today, right? Get your Starlink and go freewheel. That was not so cool back then. That was seen as a failure. And the internet was coming online, and I wanted to do something with it, but no one could really teach me. So I had to get into where the money was spent and where it was going. And that's when I jumped out in my third year. And with that, I learned business from the University of Life, if you will, through the corporate side.
Good place to learn it.
Yeah, it was really good. There's a lot of opportunity to grow and learn and adapt and fail and all the other stuff that goes along with that, which is fine. Much of the stuff that I needed to learn, I couldn't find academically at that point. So I went out and, built these series of companies after I left all of that behind. Once I kind of reached the pinnacle of where I was headed at IBM, they can continue to move up the corporate ladder. They're like, you can take early retirement. And I'm like, early retirement's a good option for me. Married in the same year, had our first pregnancy in the same year. And then within 5 years, I had a full household. We have 4 young daughters.
Oh, wow.
Now in their teens. We had all 4 in the first 5 years of our marriage, which was fun.
Wow.
Didn't sleep for about a decade.
I
not
bet.
always recommended, but definitely worth it. And what happened was I just sort of inverted the principles of life. I was really goal set and oriented and really pushing hard. I know a lot of us are, hard pushing high income earners and want to get things done. And don't always see the most simplest path through that unless there's someone else leading us. And it's really hard to do it on your own, frankly. And about 3 years into that venture, I realized I was that guy. I really didn't know how to do everything that was required in business. So it took me about 3 to 4 years to kind of recognize I needed that help. And as it turns out, the door opened to a little company out of Tulsa where the lead practitioner that ran the company kind of took me under his wing and really taught me what it meant to be a business professional and own a company. And I learned from him, the number one rule is sales fixes everything. If you can't sell the business, if you can't lead the company, if you're not the big dog that runs it forward, you can't expect someone else to do it. Too many times businesses want to hand that off or don't see it as the largest value proposition they have. And they end up suffering, which is why most startups fail in the years 4 through 5, 92% fail. So learning that process was something that was incredibly important to me. I'd had some experience a little bit in the past with what the dichotomy between mindsets. My dad, 30 years, hard blue collar worker, 12-hour shifts, quite a bit of my life. He was on swing shift, so he wasn't always around, except for a little bit nights and weekends. But he was always about hard work and dedication and, honestly, what it means to be a man and provide and do these things, which he gave me really good insights into that. but he provided enough. He just didn't provide more than. So in our house, money was a four-letter word. If you talked about it, it was disrespecting dad. If you asked about it, then you were assumed that you didn't have enough. Money just wasn't something we talked about in our house. In fact, to this day, as we're now dealing with my parents being older, it's still a difficult topic for them that we're working through
Yeah.
right now together to address as they've gotten much older and time has now come for me to take over and help manage. And that's kind of something that's hard to release for them.
Hmm.
But I did have an uncle who actually was very good at the concepts of business building. Started a boat company, and was able to kind of mentor me through some of that thought process leading up to about 2005. I had a lot of great conversations with him and came to realize that I couldn't stay in the corporate world forever. I needed to get out and do my own thing, and he really encouraged me to do that. Unfortunately, he died in an aircraft accident in
Oh, wow.
2005. He died in an ultralight aircraft. And that kind of set me back a bit for a couple of years. But when that opportunity presented itself, I'm out. I was done. It was time to go.
Hmm.
And I saw that door and I took it, risk and everything with no
Yeah.
guarantees. No guarantees, right? But fast forward, I had a series of opportunities and failures. Who doesn't, right? If you're going
Hmm.
to play in the world of business, perseverance goes through both the highs and the lows. And
Absolutely.
ultimately, that is the only thing that really sustains success in business is perseverance. I know
Hmm.
people think it's money, but it's not.
It's not.
Nope, they think it's built character traits. It's not. Those are learned. They think that there are
Hmm.
certain people who are born to be leaders. I would say I've only found very, very, very few, less than 1%, I would
Hmm.
consider born leaders. The other half or so of those leaders were conditioned and grown through fire and
Yes.
trial
Yeah.
by fire. I would probably be in that category. Having, blew up a marriage out of arrogance and pride from my part, and having blew up a company and went bankrupt, not
Hmm.
seeing what I didn't see or what I wasn't willing to look at. That set me back. And so I've had those lows and I've understood it while I've had my highs. And in that process, I kind of understand who I was as a business person, as a leader. And without that, I never would have shaped into kind of where I'm at now and who I am. And, I got into the world of marketing, and that was great because I found my niche. And in there, I was very good at the online marketing side. I just ran into some problems with that because I didn't own the business. I owned the offer. And there's a
Right.
big
Okay.
difference
Yeah.
between that, especially at the entrepreneurial stage, where a lot of people might be
Hmm.
listening to this at the aspiring entrepreneur stage, thinking about how they could transition, or they're in the process of it and wondering, how do you become someone who could do this for 18 years?
Hmm.
The end result is that you have to stumble over those opportunities. And one of the greatest things he taught me in life, and it didn't actually resonate till more than a decade after he died because I simply didn't hear. I listened, I just didn't hear. And as I've
Hmm.
gotten older, much of the conversation that he and I had was way over my head, but I now recognize as I've gotten older exactly what it was he was telling me. And those conversations have been replaying in my mind over the last decade.
Yeah.
And one of those things was first and foremost, it's who you know that gets you there, and it's what you know that keeps you there.
Hmm.
And
Like that.
networking, yeah, networking and the
Yeah.
business relationships were a big component of his success. While he
Hmm.
started building boats, that's not ultimately how he became the most successful businessman. It was understanding how to deal with people, and he was very good at it. And when I learned that from the gentleman in Oklahoma, he reiterated that, and some of that came up. And so as I've gotten, farther in my career and realizing, well, I needed to own the business, I needed to figure out, how to move from entrepreneurialism into business ownership.
Hmm.
And they're
Yep.
very different things.
Yes.
They're very different things, and not everybody understands how different those two things actually are. I would say entrepreneurialism is like bumping around in a dark room without a flashlight trying to find your ass. And
Yep.
the business world is where you actually figure out where the light switch is. And now
Yes.
you know where
Exactly.
and how to operate the flashlight, and you just keep doing
Yeah.
the same thing over and over again.
Hmm.
And you realize at some point as a business owner, success can become boring, and that's why business owners eventually become business investors.
Hmm.
They need to hunt, they need something else to kill, they need another opportunity, they want to transition capital from their current business into other models. And so I kind of understood all that concept, but I didn't really grasp me until I started launching my first physical product brands, which is where I own the business, I own the manufacturing supply chain, I own the back end of the product and the IP, the intellectual property, I own the trademarks, I own the actual physical products. And with that, it kind of set me on an entirely different path in life.
Yeah. I do want to come back to something you've mentioned a couple times that I'm a true believer in as well. And that is when we think about our failures,
Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
we look at our failures as something that we can learn from and grow from, we can do so much more. Where, as you alluded to, some people will just get stuck
Yes.
and maybe they fail because they don't look at the failure as a way moving forward. So it's
Correct.
really
Fail
happy.
forward, right?
Exactly it. Yeah. It's something that can be very transformational for leaders as well, for their teams and for businesses. And especially for entrepreneurs, like don't let it get you down. Keep moving
Correct.
forward, whatever you're doing, right?
Well, yeah, I analogize it like, driving in the woods. I grew up in Oregon, so we used to drive in the woods
Mhm.
all the time. And if you've been to Oregon, there's only like one major interstate, and everything else is off-road, two wheels,
Right.
or four wheels, or two-lane roads. There's not a whole lot else except country,
Right.
and woods. And so much of the roads into the mountains were all two-lane roads, and it never failed that somewhere in that two-lane road, especially at night, you were going to run into something. Hopefully, not run into something, but you were definitely going to have an
See it.
opportunity
Yeah.
to run into a deer or a raccoon or possum or anything else. And now that I
Mhm.
live in the country, out here on 50 acres in the Ozarks, about a mile down from the asphalt driveway, we're on a dirt road. We run into all kinds of things out here. But
I bet
growing
you
up, I
do.
recognized, that people are kind of like those deers in the headlight. They will either stop when the first problem hits and they'll freeze, or they will move. And it really is a
Hmm.
true testament as to whether or not they have the mental fortitude and capability to move when their first major failures hit them. If not, they will
Yeah.
be the deer in the headlight that ends up on the grill. The real question is, can they pick themselves up and get going again, or can they hopefully avoid that with a really simple premise? Business is
Hmm.
nothing but a series of solving problems. That's it. You solve
Yeah,
your problems.
exactly.
If you can solve other people's problems, they'll pay you and you'll make more money. But at the end of the day, if you can literally just solve problems more tenacious, more resilient, more times than somebody else, you will win. We sum it up in the word
Hmm.
perseverance, right? But at
Yeah.
the end, that is what makes or breaks people. And you'll find
Yeah.
very often there are more deers in the headlight than people who get up and or run away.
Yes, yeah. And I like that you bring up problem solving because I think that's something that everybody needs to have in their toolbox
Yeah,
because otherwise you can become one of the 92% that you were saying,
absolutely can.
right?
92. Yep. I
So
want you to be part of
problem
the 8%.
solving,
That's what I tell
yeah,
people. I want you to become part of
we
my 8%.
yes, I say the same things. I want you to be part of whatever percent I'm talking to them about, but I want you
Yep.
to be part of that positive
Yeah.
side of it. And so when it comes to problem solving, I want you to think about your business and think and your team and things like that. What are the pieces that you see people struggle with most with problem solving? Is it like
Mm.
figuring out how to do the problem solving? I mean, there's lots of tools and methods and stuff. Or is it that people sometimes are that deer in the headlight and they just don't know where to start?
It's as I've gotten older and I've taught thousands of people how to do this business model that we're in the e-commerce world with physical
Mhm.
products and brands. Um, I've come to realize there's just a subset of people who, no matter how much you motivate them, encourage them, train them, or provide things, they simply won't help themselves. And
Mhm.
it's an unfortunate situation. And I've come to realize that in time, not everyone is cut out to be a business owner. Not everyone is cut out to
Very
be an
true.
entrepreneur. It is a truth that is not always received well,
Mhm.
because some people may be in that process right now and they want to think it, and maybe that offends their ears. Good, use that. Turn it into your drive, turn it into your motivation.
Yeah.
Here's what I recognize about my failures, and quite honestly, to sort of answer your question, I could fill my failures in this room with the amount of times that I've failed. And I think that's maybe one of the differences. Some of you are not willing to fail, to try to move forward. Some of you are trying to do
Very true.
everything possible to avoid failure, to avoid
Mhm.
financial disruptions, family disruptions, life disruptions, time disruptions, intention disruptions, anything. And here's the difference that I finally came to recognize. I filled my life with that stuff, right?
Mm,
I filled my life with that
yeah.
stuff. And what ended up happening was I got to meet the real me. I got to see what I
Hmm.
was really capable of withstanding, what emotionally I was able to deal with, what I was willing to do and not willing to do, and how I was willing to act and not willing to act, and who I was willing to work with and who I was willing to say no to. And when you
Hmm.
start to get to that confidence level in who you are as a person, the business and opportunities will present themselves. And what happens is those people will become the successful people, the ones who are capable of coping mechanisms that supersede the world. They supersede motivation, motivational videos, training, coaches, or anything else. They have
Hmm.
the ability to cope through problem solving issues and figure it out. And usually, it's because those people have not only experienced some sort of failure or taken some sort of risk and hadn't had success yet with it, that they're willing to be on the next stepping stone of actually figuring it out. I don't like to be on the
Hmm.
cusp of someone's first failure. If I identify that this is the first time they think they might fail, I will typically walk away from it.
Yeah, it takes a lot to help someone through that first piece.
Yep.
And I want to talk about the risk too, because you mentioned that as well. And a lot of leaders and business owners are known and should be taking some risks, calculated most times, right? We want to be careful. We're not going to be failing our business,
Of
but
course.
that risk becomes that mindset shift that you talked about earlier as well. So, like, if we're failing, that may be a risk that we decided to take that didn't work out. So, the risk piece of it, I think, is a huge part that people get stuck on because they aim for perfection as leaders and business owners, right? Which sometimes holds them steady for a while until they start
Yeah,
going down in sales and profit and business because they're
of
not
course.
taking risks anymore. And so, do you feel that sometimes that mindset shift needs to come in so that we take more calculated risks so that we can move businesses, or as leaders, we can move our teams forward? What are your thoughts around that?
An entrepreneur who's never willing to risk will never become a business owner, and a business owner who
Agreed.
doesn't understand their risk to reward ratio will never become a business investor. So if you
Mm-hmm.
want to become an investor, you can't just skip to that. I know most people think, well, I'll buy a company, I'll invest, I'll do this thing, which in essence just says I'm willing to hand it to somebody else and not take
Mm-hmm.
responsibility for what I do or what I decide. I'll put that blame on them. And the other person who becomes successful says, I take all the risk, positive or negative, for the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if I engage someone else to help me do that. Ultimately, it's my fault. I take the risk, both the pros and the cons, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a different shift in mindset, really, to think about it,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like one person thinks they're acting in abundance, but in actuality, they're acting in scarcity. And one person actually is in abundance and can quickly identify what scarcity sounds like. And
Yeah, it's a
what
very
you
different piece, right?
it is
Very
very
different people.
different. It's in the language. It's very sneaky in the way some people try to manifest that language or differentiation. But clearly, if you listen
Mm-hmm.
long enough, you find out who isn't in that headspace and who is if you listen and you're
Yes.
willing to listen, right? The truth is, those people, there's a simple phrase: we don't rise to the goals we, set for ourselves. We fall victim to the systems we put in place. And
Mm-hmm.
victims will be in systems or needs or guarantees or requests or absolutes. Those who understand business is not a straight line. It is literally like the old analogy of a spaghetti of
Mm-hmm.
change. We'll be
Yeah.
willing to also accept what occurs, positive or negative, and the big word there is change, because they are willing to
Mm-hmm.
pivot or change or try or continue to risk. Those
Yeah.
thinking that they're going to start something new, let's, the aspiring entrepreneur side for a sec, think the
Mm-hmm.
risk is in getting started. And the risk is in actually giving up, not getting started,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Those who get to $1 million a year, their risk is also giving up or not continuing, but it's also systems and processes and operation that get them from 1 million to 5 million. It is the force
Mm-hmm.
multiplying replication of activities that got them to 1 million. They now have to be very smart about how they multiply themselves, force multiply into
Mm-hmm.
the systems and processes, because you typically won't do that without that kind of help or support. Those
Mm-hmm.
who get to 5 million and want to get to 10 million or greater, what we normally find and what I have found in my own experience is it literally is me.
Mm-hmm.
I am the linchpin between the opportunity for growth. The business has its systems and processes. It's gone beyond its risk. It's usually 3 to 5 years old. It won't grow past those metrics of revenue unless the owner is now willing to take the next level of risk. If you're willing to
Yeah.
risk up, it's typically not out of necessary cash flow. You have to go and get capitalization. You have to
Mm-hmm.
risk
Yes.
more money to make more money. Okay.
Yes. And people hate that. They hate even
Well,
thinking about that suggestion.
because we've been taught that debt is bad. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not on the camp of Kiyosaki, who says all debt is good to some degree. He says that, not to misquote him.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
there is debt for tool-based usage. There are credit
Mm-hmm.
lines for growth-based in which the business serves the credit line. Those typically who reach up to 5 million have used or leveraged some kind of credit line, but really to get to the next leveraged asset, they have to really risk a lot more of the business and opportunity. It's that risk reward ratio. And some people
Yeah.
are like, well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to hit that risk until I get to 50 or 100 million, and they don't know where they are. And some people are like going to do it at 1 million to 5 million. It really just gets down. These are just numbers to kind of help align
Yes. Yeah.
phases of growth in the entrepreneurial mind that lead you to business. But the aspect of that, it just becomes experience. It's usually lack of experience or network that keeps them from growing past those different stages. And they're not
Hmm.
willing to extend a little trust and verify before they get into the next network, because that is like a pyramid. It is a network that grows up, it becomes tighter and tighter. And then network that gets tighter and tighter only lets so many people into it who have to be invited by someone else who knows that they're serious and actually do what they're saying,
Yeah.
or they don't let you in. It becomes more of a club, okay, the
Yeah.
higher you get.
Yeah.
And not everybody just gets into that club or the next club
Hmm.
or the one after it. And that is also one of those things that is with business owners. If you are isolating yourself and not in network, if you're not in community, if you're not out with others, you simply won't have those opportunities to grow past that point. You will have a
Hmm.
narrow view of risk and reward. And that really is not going to leverage your business past 5 million a year if you don't do that. You will be the linchpin
Hmm.
for that growth in your business.
Yeah, and community and networking are so important. I was talking to a client this morning where she was considering chopping some of her budget around community and networking, and I'm like, no, if you want to move forward, you absolutely need to know these things. I mean, there's various reasons why. It could be for taking risks, it could be investors, it could be understanding your competitors
That's
and
right.
what are they doing for moving forward. All there are a whole bunch of different awesome reasons to make sure that you are putting some money into networking and community, and especially if you
Yeah.
want to grow, right? What are your
Not
thoughts on
everybody
that?
appreciates that. They don't always understand the
Yeah.
value. But I paid $25,000 for masterminds I'm a part of in order to get access to the network, to get
Hmm.
access to the
Exactly.
people, right? So that I
Yeah.
understand who they are and I buy my way into that group. And again, it's what who you know that gets you there, and it's what you know that keeps you there. If I
Yeah.
buy my way into that group, but I'm not willing to stay there, learn, or add value from my own intrinsic knowledge or experience, I will be of no value to the group and they will see no value from me. Therefore, I will never
Yeah.
get any business done. You
Yeah.
understand?
It has to be
So
reciprocal, right?
it
Yeah.
must be reciprocal, even if you're the one buying into it, right? If you show
Hmm.
up and like, well, I'm here, and then complain about everything, you're going to be basically shot down by that group.
Yeah.
So, that often is fear in disguise. Many times, the
Hmm.
fear aspect, the need for confidence or guarantee, if you have any of those, if you have a trust issue with anybody, giving value to you that you have to pay into, you're simply going to never make it in this world. You have to
Hmm.
understand the primary thing about any business model is the network. That's why the phrase network is net worth has been
Yes.
probably said 100 times on this podcast before. Very clear understanding, right?
Yeah.
We are, in the physical product space, which means we move products, e-commerce channels, Amazon, Shopify,
Hmm.
TikTok, retail channels. We have a private equity group we're extended into now, where we have an LOI on our first company. It's about $11 million deal. But we're buying another 5 companies between 20 and 50 million in size. So
Hmm.
about 100 million in portfolio when we're done acquiring. But we're also going into a flexible space side on the commercial real estate as well, that we're going to be investing into a goal about 100 million in 3 years with that
Hmm.
commercial real estate space. So again, there's the principles of business regardless of the track. When you start to
Yeah.
realize you have that network and connection, you will find the other people that connect. While I've not been in real estate, my partner's been in it for 20 years. And with
Right.
that, I
Yeah.
am in networks of people who do very large real estate deals, 50, 100 million, 400 million in size, but they're just friends, their network, their community. And now that's a leveraged, respectful opportunity that at some point I'm going to be able to use. And the reason you do that, of course, is to forward business, right? Forward
Hmm.
business isn't just here's what maybe somebody hears me saying. It's all about profit. All you're talking about is profit, Neil. You're taking advantage of people. Profit, profit, profit. Like everybody hears that word and thinks it's a negative four-letter word too, right? Like money is a four-letter word. It's not. Okay. If purpose and value equal profit, okay, then profit isn't just financial. I know everyone hears that and immediately leaps to financial, right? Because we're
Hmm.
programmed to do that.
Yep.
But honestly, profit is what? We're profiting in this relationship by being together today. Someone might be
Exactly.
profiting
Yeah.
by hearing this podcast and your podcast, putting out your message all the time. Profits in relationship, profits in family, there's profits in network. And then there are, of course, financial opportunities for profit. They can be
Hmm.
gained if you're not the sleazy used car salesman who goes along with that, right? But if,
Yeah.
well, if you push purpose and value first, profits
Yeah.
will be a byproduct of any of those activities, regardless of whatever business you do. Just be smart about it. Just realize,
Hmm.
really simply, that you cannot get to wisdom without execution and experience first. Everybody
Hmm.
wants to drive through those, and nobody wants to do the executables, do the action items, or experience the
Yeah.
negatives that come with it or the positives.
Yeah. And it's very interesting that you talk about the profit as not just being financial. My business model that I created is the same way. If you
Yep.
want to get profit, you have to have a good strategy. You have to develop, you have to have the right people, you have to have processes in place, and things like that need to happen. And then profit comes,
Yeah,
right? And
it does. It comes from relationship. And a lot of
exactly,
people
yeah.
don't always understand that because many times they're in the process of selling themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when you transition through that entrepreneurial stage, what you start to realize is brand, you should beget person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the greatest gifts I ever gave myself was basically dropping the need to be somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be about something else, right? People have
Does
to want to, they buy from people they know, they
yep.
trust, things like that, right?
Yep.
So it's got to be the same for your brand,
Know, like, and
for sure.
trust. So the brand
Yes.
has to push, that aspect forward.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses and opportunities to do business will always be at various levels. But for those of us, wanting to aspire to certain things, for me, I've reached most of the lifestyle aspirations I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm set up financially. My house is paid for, my cars are paid for. I've got money in the bank. I've got businesses that are running. I really don't need anything. My
Mm-hmm.
daughters are secure. My wife is secure. We built this life to a situation where I can spend it with my daughters. We've homeschooled them all since they were born.
Mm-hmm.
We've done life together. We travel together. I'm here every day in my office doing work and life. I've set my life up with purpose and value, and the aspect of it has been the profits.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that easy to get here. We
Never is
no,
it?
the funny thing, I was just talking with my wife about this the other day. When we had to declare bankruptcy from a business deal that went really bad, and there was a business strategy to declare the bankruptcy in order to indemnify myself from things that were happening in the business I was unaware of, and I was able to prove and then therefore be indemnified so that I wouldn't be under any legal issue. And part of that was doing a business bankruptcy, a strategic move.
Hmm.
But in that process, I had to tie up all my assets. I had to leave everything and liquidate things. And so at a point
Hmm.
there during the process, I had like $569 in my bank account, a pregnant wife and
Wow.
3 children, and that's what I had access to. So going through that process and remember going down to the courthouse in Oklahoma with 20 poor other sad souls, some of who were crying, thinking that bankruptcy is one direction. It's really kind of different, and most people don't always understand. At least it was when I went through it. There's no, judge in a really cool courtroom. There's no like hearing that showed us.
Mm.
It's literally you walk into a dank underground, almost was like a bunker. There's
Oh,
fluorescent
really?
lights, and there's like 20
Yeah.
tables, right? And each table has a
Ah.
judge, and you are assigned a number, and you walk over to the table with like a half partitioned wall, and you sit down in front of a plastic table with a judge who's got your life laid in front of you, who decides what you're going to do with your
Hmm.
bankruptcy. That was my experience. That was pretty, and my
Interesting.
wife was there, and she was pregnant, like 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant with our daughter.
I'll
And
bet you learned a lot from that.
yes, it actually strengthened my faith. That was one of the first of my 5 pillars, and even strengthened my
Hmm.
faith even more so, and became one of my primary, pillars in my life. He had the
Yeah.
opportunity to do something I didn't even know he could do, and that was literally strike off the debt. We had made a plan, we had paid into the plan, we had, made efforts to reconcile debtors and fix all that issue, and we had a plan to pay off the debt, and we had made good faith efforts toward that, and it was all documented. Well, when we get into there, expecting him to just, follow the plan and then sign off on everything, and this whole horrible experience would be done, he looked at us. And for a moment, I believe he took mercy on us. I call it a faith event. I'll give God the glory for that one. But
Hmm.
he literally stroked the pen and wiped our debt out.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't
That's
even know he could do that.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
that
never
point.
know, right? I mean, we learn
Nope,
from these things.
that's
We
right.
go, we do what we need to
We
do to
learn.
continue
We
to
did.
survive.
And for 5 years after that, we had no credit. No
That would
credit
take a long
cards,
time to build
none of
back.
that. We paid for everything on cash, and we
Yeah.
set a plan of action, and we rebuilt things, and I pivoted into marketing and mobile marketing online, which actually became pretty
Hmm.
successful for us and was able to kind of put us on the right track again. But I think again, there is those who might be listening think, in their minds, maybe some of you understand this because you're already at this level, that there is some perfect process for you out there, some perfect path, some perfect business. I think that it is in the establishment of your efforts and your opportunities that you will discover what that is. And but be open to understanding most likely it will not be where you start. And it may not be in the
Yes.
middle of that process or anywhere you feel like could be an end to that process, but you will sort of discover where you fit the best. Just make sure you enjoy it, have fun, keep your family and friends around you. It's a huge priority because in the end, all this business building we're talking about, all this money, all this opportunity, it's not following me in a hearse behind my a U-Haul behind my hearse. It's not going with
Right.
me. I'm not
Yeah.
taking it. The only people I expect there at the end will be my family, and that's what I've kept a
Mhm.
primary focus on, even with all my business, is to make sure that my family knows they're the top priority.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to end our conversation today is by reminding people there isn't a perfect path. Like we don't
Yep.
have magic wands as much as some of us would love to have that. We don't
Yep.
have the magic ball to tell us what happens tomorrow. We
That is
have to
right.
take those failures, we have to take those risks, and we have to learn from everything that we do to
Correct.
build our path forward.
That's correct. And I always remind people, if I might, in the end here,
Yes, of course. Yeah.
to remember that your opportunities begin at the end of your excuses. Okay.
I love that. I love that. It's so true.
Yep. And what follows behind that was imperfect action, right?
Yeah.
Imperfect action, and something perfect will happen along the way. If you're willing to give it an effort, you will find a perfect path, perfect opportunities. When opportunity meets at the right time, you'll be in the position to take advantage of it. Use that experience to go after it, whether it fails or it goes. You have to go after it. You'll never regret trying.
And I love what you just said. And I think a great way to end is saying take action.
Take
Because if
action.
you don't take action, you get comfortable
That's right.
and then eventually things will fall down.
And
So
pretty soon
take
you'll be like
action.
90 years old wondering, wow, I should have tried that 40 years ago when I had.
Yeah. The shoulda, woulda, coulda, right?
Shoulda, woulda. Don't go the shoulda, woulda. I do not regret ever trying and failing and even all of those issues. If I could forward myself to a 90-year-old man and be like, well, what didn't I do? And then try to put myself in the mental framework of, well, now I'm only 49. Well, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of
Yeah.
years left to fix it,
Yeah.
to do something, to
Yeah.
take action. And you should consider that if you're listening to this today.
Now, I would love for our audience to get to know how they can find you online and if they want
Sure.
to learn more about what you do or your business is how do they find you?
Yeah, in simple terms, you can go to voltagedm.com. That's voltagedigitalmarketing.com. Free workshops. There's my book on there. There's other resources. There's a presentation that explains what we do with our business builders in the e-commerce world and why we build the companies to exit and we acquire them
Okay.
when they exit. So we work with our clients all the way through to execution. So we're the beginning and the end. And if that's of any interest, check it out. I'm also on LinkedIn and all the other social networks. My last name is Twa. So for those of you who are in TWA or maybe on listening to this, no, I'm not a small
Yeah.
Asian dude. I often get mistaken for that. So you can Google my last name and you will find me out there and just connect wherever you feel most comfortable.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the conversation today. I'm sure there's been a lot of different tips and tricks in there for people to take.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, we would like to thank you, our audience. We hope that you gained some valuable insights or tips from today's conversation with Neil. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a great rating. This helps us and our guests like Neil reach even more leaders with helpful stories, tips, and advice so you can grow too. We love helping our leaders grow and thrive. So if you are a leader who knows that leadership development and growth are key to any leader's journey, please visit our website at amplifyingleadership.ca, a division of Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. And before you go, don't forget to grab this quarter's free leadership resource for new leaders, Your Guide as a New Leader. It is designed to support you through your first few weeks. The link will be in the episode summary. Until next time, please remember, leadership matters.